Hi, we're Richard and Jackie from Early Retirement Wanderlust.
We've just clocked up over 100,000 miles in our VW campervan.
In last week's episode, we talked about different ways that we've actually used the campervan.
And this week, we want to take you through what we've learned from those 100,000 miles of adventures.
So 100,000 miles is quite some landmark. We've had the van for over 5 years as a camper van, and we have actually spent over 600 nights in it.
As you would expect from 5 years of campervan ownership, we've had some amazing times in the van, but we've also had some absolute disasters. And during that time, we've learned so much, some really strange things that don't necessarily come to mind to start with. So what we want to do in this video, in no particular order, is to just take you through some of the things that we've learned during our 5 years and 100,000 miles of campervan adventures.
So first up, we always pack far too many clothes. On our last trip, we went away for 5 weeks into Europe. We were planning on going into the Pyrenees, and we packed all our winter weather gear, and we didn't touch any of it in the whole 5 weeks.
Another thing we've learned is that our gas and our water supply always run out at the most inopportune moment. So whenever possible, we try and fill our LPG tank up to the full, and we also try and run with water on board. Likewise, we also have an issue with AdBlue in VW vans, and if there's ever a moment that you don't want to run out of AdBlue, you can pretty much guarantee you'll get an AdBlue warning. One of my little obsessions is obsessing about battery power and making sure that we don't fry the batteries by taking the battery level too low, and also my obsession with how much battery the fridge is using.
We try to keep duplicates of everything that we desperately might need in the van so that we don't make the mistake of turning up and not having what we need. So we have tea and coffee, we have duplicates of all of our crockery, we have the van completely set up, ready to go.
Always keep your bedding packed in the van. We've had one trip where we'd taken the bedding out to wash it, we'd forgotten to put it back in the van, and then we arrived on our next trip with no bedding. Bit of an issue.
We didn't learn the hard way the first time from this one, but remember to always empty your fridge at the end of a trip. We have had a couple of occasions where we've gone back in to repack a few weeks later. Not a nice sight. And when the fridge is empty, make sure that you put the little catch on so that the fridge is vented so you don't go back to a mouldy fridge. We've also had that.
As much as we would love it, and as hard as we have tried to cut down on the rattles while driving a VW campervan, it's almost impossible. We rely on bits of bubble wrap and tea cloths, but no matter how much we pack and no matter how well we pack, we always seem to have the road rattles. It's just part of campervan life.
Before we go to bed at night, we make sure that we've got everything out that we might possibly need, because a lot of our cupboards are actually underneath the bed and we can't get to them. Richard hates waking up and not being able to make a coffee with some biscuits in the morning.
In such a small van, if things aren't going to go amiss, everything has to have its place. So within our little system, I know that up there is my tea bags, across there are normally where my toothbrush is kept, and back there is where my deodorant can is.
No matter how van proud you might be, sand and mud get everywhere. There is no keeping the van clean and tidy for the whole time that you're away. I've got a little dustpan and brush that I spend hours seemingly, actually no, just a couple of minutes each day, just brushing out, but I can't get rid of the sand and mud.
Jackie's given me this one to do because she says it's my saying of less is more. We started our van adventures with the van absolutely packed to the gills with everything you could possibly need. And then we realised that half of the stuff is just marketing and you don't actually need it. So we've slimmed everything down. We've definitely learnt about campervan life, the power of a simple life. So when it's light, we get up, and when we're tired, we go to bed. We've realised that you don't actually need many possessions to live a fulfilled life, and we just have such an amazing time. We lasted 14 weeks on the road in the van with very few possessions and realised for us what life was all about.
When travelling in Europe, particularly France and Spain, and you arrive on a Sunday, make sure you have an emergency meal ready to prepare, because the supermarkets in most of the towns don't open.
We've also learned that when you're wild camping, you can park in a really isolated, quiet spot on a night, and invariably in the morning, there'll be people parked next to you.
Lots of people worry about being far too cold when they're away in the van, particularly in the winter. We find that really easy to sort out. We have got a heater and nothing that an extra blanket or two can't solve. However, the heat, that's a different story. When we were away in Croatia, there was no way of escaping that oppressive heat. We've definitely learned that you can live really cheaply, as long as you take out the cost of actually buying the camper van in the first place. We pack up a van full of food and we can be away for as little as £100 a week, including all our accommodation, foods and fun. When you're away for more than a few days in a camper van this small, you've really got to love or like the person that you're away with, because it's such a small space.
But there are ways around it. This is definitely my space, and this is where I sit with my reading light when Jackie needs a bit of space.
And this is my space. It's close to the wine cupboard, so I can have as much wine as I want, and I can get my bed out whenever I want. We're very often tempted to go back to the places that we know and love. In fact, this is where we filmed our first ever video for YouTube. But we've learned since we've retired that there's just so many different places to go visit, and we've got much better at that.
So that's it from us. Try again. So that's it from us.
Over 100,000 miles and lots of lessons learned. I'm sure there's probably loads more that we haven't even thought about, and we hope that you find some of these interesting.
If you've got any more tips, then pop them in the comments below, because campervan life is all about learning, and we ain't got it nailed yet, but we're enjoying the process.
Yeah, we're definitely still learning, and we definitely had a few bloopers on our last trip.
See you later.
Bye.